My name is Brittany Martin. I'm one of the graduate assistants with Spark. We're so glad to have you all here today and really excited for today's presentation on performance anxiety. Dr. Armin Shaomian is an associate professor in entertainment management in the Department of Sport and Entertainment Management here at USC. He is also the principal at Preston Residential College. Before he joined the faculty at USC, he was an associate producer for the Young Arts Foundation in Miami, where he had the opportunity to oversee live performance logistics, as well as strategic relations with Baryshnikov Arts Center in New York City, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, and the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. He has also held the position of musical director of the critically acclaimed touring company of the Second City Theater. And other entertainment work includes several voiceovers for Disney and Warner Brothers feature animations. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Armin Shaomian.
Thanks, Brittany. Hey guys, how's it going? It's going. It's Friday. Is it Friday? It's Friday. How many of you are music majors? All right. Do we have any music minors? Okay. Cool. They're probably all at home watching on Zoom. So as Brittany said, I teach here. I'm in the entertainment management program. Any of you familiar with sport and entertainment management across campus? Okay. So I'm actually the only doctor of musical arts in that entire college. So USC is a little unique because the entertainment management program grew out of the sport management program. We have a very good department over there. And so I was hired about 10 years ago to develop music. Essentially, we don't call it music business, but it's music business management related courses. So I've been here about 10 years, developed 6 to 8 classes. So if any of you are minoring in sport and entertainment, you probably are required to take one of my classes, even though I don't teach it anymore because we have so many students, so I don't get to see everybody. But I know at USC, there's also a music industry, I believe, minor, and there's an entrepreneurship program, so there's a lot of great things happening here in the School of Music. So the first thing you do when you talk to an audience is to make sure that you have some street cred. And so while I have like a fancy bio like most professors, I thought I'd get to talk a little bit about myself, just so you guys understand my background and kind of where I'm gonna take this little presentation today. So a little bit about me, I like long walks on the beach. I don't, actually. My dad was a musician. I come from a very musical family. My parents discovered that I had like perfect pitch when I was about 4 years old. My dad was a jazz arranger, so he'd sit in the living room, play on the piano, do all the chords and all that stuff. And then he had just kind of taught me do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, on the piano. I was just 4 years old playing around. And then apparently I was in my room playing, and he was just doing chords, and I started like yelling out the notes, like that's an A, that's a D, that's an F. And they were just like he came into the room and he was just like, what the, and then went back and was like, wait, tell me again. And so he just started playing random notes on the piano, and I was able to just kind of call them out from my room. And they were like, okay, so my sister, who had started to take piano lessons, stopped, my older sister, and then they were like, we're putting this one into piano lessons. So that's kind of how I started my musical background. So I was about 5 when I started piano lessons. My first official performance was when I was about 7, and I'm not talking like a cute kindergarten performance. That was my first actual concert. It was about 40 minutes, but it was like my solo performance. I actually grew up in Stockholm, Sweden. So I also took up acting because I really loved acting, theater and all that good stuff. So during the regular school day, I would go to elementary school, all the way up through high school, but then in the afternoons, twice a week, I would take the ferry, because I grew up on an island outside Stockholm in Sweden. It's very beautiful. And then take a bus, and then metro, 3 stops. Sweden is very safe, so you can do this on your own when you're 6 years old. So from 1st grade to 9th grade, I would go into the Royal College of Music, which is kind of like the Juilliard or the USC School of Music. It's where everybody goes to, study music, and then I would study with a professor there twice a week in the afternoons. And then I'd get home at like 9:30 at night, and then, I'd do my homework on the bus. So then I grew up on stage. Lots of performances. I was one of those wunderkind, whatever, child prodigy. Lots of shows. And along with that came also some of the acting. So in 1991, God, I feel old. In 1991 was the 200th anniversary of the death of Mozart. So around the world, they were celebrating, every concert hall and every theater and every radio station. They were showing Amadeus like 24/7. So everything was all about Mozart that year. So I actually got the role of Mozart. There was a play about him, and so I got to play the young Mozart, and because the role had a lot of demands, like play with a blindfold, play upside down, and all these things. So I was about 12 years old when I got that role, and I got to perform it at the Royal Orchestra Hall, or Concert Hall in Stockholm, which is absolutely beautiful. Sold out several times, lots of media, radio, print, and then when you become a bit of a celebrity, that's when Disney calls you. And so this was in Sweden, but I ended up doing lots of voiceovers for Disney as well. Good money if you're 14 years old and you have a gig with Disney doing voiceovers that are going to be shown at the movie theaters. Then when I turned 16, I wanted to do a study abroad year. It was my junior year of high school, so I actually came to Michigan and did high school there, and I kind of never left. So here we are, just a few years later. Here's some examples of me on the cover of the back of the massive daily newspaper in Sweden, on the back of the cultural page. And here's actually a close-up when I had the role of Mozart. In this specific scene, he's supposed to scare his sister by wearing like wolf, whatever that is. You know, I didn't know, I was just like 12 years old. Weird fact, I was looking up some of the info about me, because sometimes you just have to Google yourself when you were younger. And here's another, this was during rehearsal, this photo, this was done by a journalist, but there's a very well-known violinist, Swedish violinist, who was in the performance. He played Mozart's dad, and so here's an example of me rehearsing, you know, playing upside down and all that stuff. So, you know, you have to kind of be talented to get this role. They had a lot of people auditioning, and I actually never auditioned because I didn't know about it. But when I showed up at the Royal College of Music, my professor said, there's a director here who wants to see you, because I was the youngest student there. And so we had this conversation, and they realized I really enjoy acting. But here's the weird thing. I discovered these photos on eBay. And the weirdest part is that it's under some company called Vintage Photos. I've never been called vintage. I don't know if that's like a slap in the face or like a street cred, but apparently I'm very vintage. You can get it for $12.90, and apparently it's shipped from Iceland. I've never been there. And then there's tons more. So I don't know what's going on, but it was very creepy to discover myself on eBay when I was preparing for this presentation. So let's start with you. So I've talked a little bit about myself, and we're here to kind of talk a little bit about performance anxiety. So, what are some of the things you worry about? Since I asked early on, and 99% of you are full-on music majors, so you're either singers, instrumentalists, what are some of the things you worry about when you have to perform in front of others? Yes, sir?
Messing up.
Messing up? Okay, what are you studying?
Well, piano, I guess.
You guess?
Yeah.
Don't guess. No guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. What year are you now? Are you freshman? Okay. Classical or jazz, or are you doing everything? Music industry studies. Okay, cool. So you're afraid of messing up. That's probably a good answer. That's probably, everybody will agree to that. That's good. What else? Aside, yes, sir. What? Shaking.
Yeah.
Shaky hands. You're a pianist?
I'm a French hornist and an organist.
Wow. You know, I took organ for several years as like my minor. I'm embarrassed, but I just, something with the pedals, it was tough. Okay, so shaky hands, what else? Yes. Yes.
Expectations. Your own set expectations.
Okay, expectations, that's a good one. Yes, who else? Yeah. Yes, you, sorry, yeah.
What peers think of me?
Sorry?
What your peers think
What your peers think
of me?
of you. Man, you guys, this is deep stuff. I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy peasy. All right, give me one more. Let's do one more. Messing up, expectations, what your peers think of you, shaking hands, what else? Give me one more. Yes?
Like, what happens after the performance?
What happens after the performance? So we have a nice, wonderful variety of things that you may worry about when you are going to perform in front of others. So what are some things that you have tried to overcome performance anxiety? Yes? Eating a banana beforehand. What's your instrument? I was going to say singer, that would be rough, because, Okay, how far beforehand? Because that's a good answer.
Like 30, 45 minutes.
Okay, so having a banana a little bit beforehand. Bassoonist here. Who else? What else have you tried? What are some tips? Yes?
Thinking about how I can make things entertaining rather than right.
Okay, I like that. That's more my jam, actually. More entertaining than just right. Yes? Smile. What's your instrument? Classical guitar. So at least you don't have to, no bassoon or trumpet. All right. What else? Any other techniques that you've tried? I mean, certainly there's 100 of you in here, and certainly there must be at least 100 different techniques. Yes?
Practice being anxious by working out before and elevate your heart rate or just playing in front of other people in front of the concert.
That's some good ones. Practicing, playing in front of other. Yep. Before the concert. Yes?
Beta blockers.
Beta blocker. Okay, tell me more about this. This is so medical to me.
It's a prescription medication that you use, and it lowers your heart rate.
Okay, so how many of you use prescription? I mean, you don't have to tell me, but I'm just curious because it's nothing that wasn't even a thing for me. So maybe a prescription, obviously in consultation with a doctor, right? Because you want to make sure you're not taking pills if you're not supposed to, because it'll definitely mess you up. If you don't believe me, look at any rock star who's no longer alive and died before 60. All right, who else? Yes?
Simply standing on stage and singing, not thinking about anything else but the fact that you're on stage performing.
Yes, but isn't that kind of difficult though? It's true, I totally agree.
Until I'm not there. Until I'm standing on the stage, it's difficult until I'm not there.
Yeah.
And then it's just about being in the performance.
So standing on stage, singing without thinking about all the other stuff. And once you're out here, you say kind of clicks, it takes place. Any other tips that you've used to try to overcome? Yes?
Like controlled breathing or like meditation.
Controlled breathing or meditation. What is your instrument? Or
Music and what she said.
okay. Do you play anything? Do you sing? Okay. All right. So what are some of the symptoms you have when you are nervous about having to give or giving a performance? Let's say it's 10, 20 minutes before you go on stage, or it's the morning of. What are some of the symptoms that you get? Yes? Yes?
Oh, giddiness?
Giddiness. Actually, that's a good one, though. I mean, that sounds good. What else? Yes? Your heart speeds up, your hands. What is your instrument? Clarinet. Okay, who else? Yes? Stomach ache. Okay, who else? Yeah.
Feeling like it's insanely cold.
Cold. So you start feeling very cold. Why do you think that is? What's the reason we feel cold? Anyone have an idea why you would start feeling cold? Yeah?
I'm pretty sure stress affects your cardiac output, so it might have something to do with blood flow, perhaps when you get stressed.
Exactly. Your heart rate goes up a little bit, and so you're starting to feel, cold in hands, feet, whatever. What else? What other? Yes? Dry mouth. What is your instrument? French horn. Okay. That's not good, I guess, right? You're like, okay, need to have water handy. What else? What other symptoms do you have? Yes? Sweating. Yep. Heart rate goes up. What else? Anyone else here? Yeah. Lots of appetite. I was like, wow, you need to give me some tips. Okay, so loss of appetite, because you're kind of tense, so the last thing you want to do is eat food. Okay? Yes?
I was going to say both your hands are shaking and you have an inability to concentrate on what you're performing at the moment.
Inability to concentrate. That's definitely a common symptom. Yeah? Sorry? Sniffles? Okay. What else? Did you guys have one back there?
Yeah, it was start overthinking to the point where I'm thinking about anything but the performance I'm supposed to be doing.
So starting to overthink, so you think about everything else except for the performance itself. Wow, you guys, that's 20 different symptoms. So obviously all over the place. So why do we get nervous? I mean, everybody here apparently gets nervous, gets a little anxious. So why do you think you get nervous? What's the reason? Yeah.
Again, it's about like your expectations. You say your expectations so high that they're so hard to reach.
Your expectations become so high that they're hard to reach, hence you become nervous. Did you have one?
Because you care.
Because you care. That's actually very good. I mean, yeah, because if you didn't care, you wouldn't have feelings about it one way or another. What else? Why do we get nervous? Yes.
Because fear, or like you're almost like preemptively getting ashamed of yourself before you even perform.
Gotcha. One of them, according to some research studies, I was trying to be all professorial and look up some research, is fear of the unknown. And it's two kind of chemicals that affect that. Adrenaline, obviously, is always, you have adrenaline for many type of things that are going on, and cortisol, okay? So fear of the unknown. Who agrees to partially to fear of the unknown? And why would that be? Why do you think fear of the unknown would make you nervous? What's the unknown in this case? Yes, back there?
I just feel like in a way it's doubt. We're worried about whether we're going to miss some memorization thing or anything.
Okay, you're worried about missing memorization or messing up something. There's some doubt, yeah?
I get really nervous about my dorms. I think I'm actually going to make it all the way to the end without letting myself know.
Your end note. So it's really about the quality of the performance. You get worried about that. Yes?
Yeah, it's just really overall just not knowing how the performance is going to go and how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. I will tell you, I grew up being a solo pianist, but as I got older, when I went to college, that's really when you're exposed to playing with a lot of other people, especially if you're a pianist, because, in band and in orchestra, you're always used to playing with other friends or classmates, whatever. But as a pianist, you're really isolated. And it wasn't really my personality. I always felt like, I love piano. It's the only instrument I know how to play. But, sitting in a practice room in third grade for about 4 hours a day, it just wasn't as exciting, and then I'd get jealous because all of my other friends, if they're like in band or orchestra, it was more social. And I think that's why I really enjoyed acting, because acting, I wasn't acting alone on stage, it was like a whole ensemble. And so as I grew older and going through college, that was the best part, because you got to meet a lot of people, you find a lot of similar interests, you make friends, and then you jam together, and that was way more fun. So my little apartment in Detroit, I had hosted like every single person's birthday party there. So I was living right on campus, and we had people from Serbia, and we had people from Hungary, and we had like a bandoneon player from France. So there was always like a jam session going on in my house, and I love that because every friend I knew in music school obviously was either a singer or an instrumentalist, and that's when I discovered I really enjoyed chamber music. So as I grew older and as I perform a lot, many of you may know Professor Janet Hopkins, who is a mezzo-soprano here at on the faculty. And so we perform a lot, because for me it's more fun to perform with others. And I also feel like it takes some of the edge off when there's like 2 people or more, as opposed to just me at the piano with the spotlight. It's much more fun when there's like a couple people and chamber music or a quartet or something. Another reason we get anxious is the fear of failure. And we heard a couple of you mention this, that you can make mistakes or you fail to meet the expectations. And I love that I get to ask these questions before I show the answer, because it means that you guys are like really spot on as far as for what the research says and what you guys are experiencing. And the other one that you guys mentioned is fear of being judged or rejected. And so that's criticism, right? Everybody here, most of you have to do juries. How many of you do juries isn't that every semester? Yeah, that was always like, oh gosh, And then you're out in the hallway and you hear the person before you perform or whatever, and then it's your turn, and it's just like, I hate hearing music the day of a performance. Like, I completely shut it off, all right? And then, of course, you all have performances, and many of you had to have auditions to be accepted, or you have auditions to maybe go on to grad school or play in other bands, orchestras, what have you. And so that's obviously the fear of being judged, because you are being judged. You're being judged on your performance. That's just how it is. All right? So here are some tips and ideas for a calmer state of mind. Somebody mentioned having a banana or eating something. That's actually pretty good. I know, this is lame and old, but you gotta practice regularly. Because the more you practice, the more comfortable you are with the piece you're gonna play. It's just common sense, right? Hopefully some of you are into sports and the good teams win. Hello, go Lady Gamecocks in Dallas, right? Because they know what they're doing, and so do many of you. I'm sure we have a lot of talent in here. But the more you practice, the more comfortable you get, because you know what you're doing. It's not unknown. It's not like, oh, I should have not skipped this difficult passage or this page, and now I know I'm about to, stumble all over it or whatnot. You have to visualize success. What do you think that means? It's kind of up there. Yeah?
Begin with the end in mind.
I'm sorry?
Begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, maybe begin with an end in mind. That's actually that's an interesting, yeah? Yes? Manifest the best outcome. So it's kind of like a headspace. It's a mental kind of a little bit of gymnastics there, yeah?
Decide as hard as you're gonna go well.
Okay. Yes, up there?
If you're going in expecting to fail, you're more likely to fail.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna, yeah, exactly. Self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oops, I'm about to fail, so I'll just go fail, right? And so imagine yourself performing flawlessly and receiving positive feedback from the audience. Visualize success. It sounds harder than it is, but it's something that you need to get used to because it's something you kind of have to practice along with your actual practicing. You have to imagine it, you have to think through it to just kind of get comfortable with that idea. Focus on your breath, okay? When you feel anxious, take a few slow, deep breaths. This will help you relax and focus on your performance. I don't know, well, I guess most of you are sitting in the audience when you get to see your professors perform. But I've had the amazing honor and pleasure to perform with a bunch of the faculty here at the School of Music. And so we're usually standing there, and it's a little tricky in this building because there's no real backstage, right? Like it's just like the hallway, there's a bathroom there, it's like really, so you're like trying to have this mental, and I'm big on lighting, and the light is like bright, it's like hallway lighting, like office lighting. No complaints to the dean because he's awesome, but there's no real backstage here. So if you were to see your professors, they really wouldn't be that different than when you're here. They're just tons more experienced because that's what happens as you grow older. But if you were to be right outside before they come on stage, because usually you guys are sitting here, they're doing the same thing. Just very focused, very quiet, some deep breaths, just trying to concentrate and just kind of, have that calm state of mind. So if you see them, don't run up to them and chat with them as if they're, just like catch up with them after the performance. Dress comfortably. Now, don't dress in pajamas because that can be tacky, depending on, unless it's like a show. But you want to avoid tight or constricting outfits because it'll make you feel uncomfortable. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute. How many of you felt super ready to go perform, and then the day of performance you sat there and you realized, oh, I'm wearing a suit or I'm wearing a dress, and this is completely not how I felt practicing for 6 months? I actually stopped performing with the suit coat on. I hate it. It's just very constricting. So one thing you need to do is when you are getting ready for a performance, I would say 2 weeks prior, start practicing with whatever you're going to be wearing on stage. Another thing as a pianist, the pedals. I have dress shoes on, completely changes the feel of the pedals. Because sometimes dress shoes have a little thicker sole, and so my foot comes up even more. And then another thing is, you unfortunately as a pianist, you never have a say in the instrument. It's whatever is at the hall, while as any other, band or orchestra instrument usually, it's your instrument. So you're much more familiar with the instrument you're using, or as a singer. As a pianist, it's like, okay, it's luck of the draw. Many times it's good, but many times it's not. And another thing is these are usually raised, right? So you can move it around. Well, that means the pedals are much higher than what you're probably using in the practice room. Because in the practice rooms, you don't have a bunch of grand pianos being hauled around. So those little things matter massively when you are so focused and you've been practicing tons to have your piece ready, and then you come out and it's a completely different feel. So if you're able to, no matter your instrument, try to book the hall as much as possible, get used, and make sure the light setting is the same as it would be during a performance. It's another thing, when you're sitting there, all of a sudden the spot is hitting you in the corner of your eye, and it's not how it was in the practice room because it was office lighting. I mean, there's a lot of little things that change your environment, and that affects the outcome. So I highly recommend 2 weeks out, as you start getting really ramped up and play through your full program, wear whatever performance outfit you're going to wear, because you will be much more comfortable, as opposed to wearing a brand new suit or a dress and you come out there and it's like, oh, the shoulder feels constricted or whatever. Okay? Arrive early. This will give you time to relax and get familiar with the venue. I've performed 20 times in here, and today I'm just talking. I'm not even performing. But I got here about 40 minutes before you did. Because you just never, actually the thing wasn't turning on. We were trying to figure it out. So little things like that, because what happens otherwise if you don't plan, if you don't arrive too early, and you arrive just in time to kind of go on stage? Yes. Well, you're rushing, and your mind hasn't even reset and think, okay, here's the space, here's the lighting, this is the floor, that's the ceiling. Like, you have to kind of just be grounded before you go on stage. So you can't just walk in 2 minutes before, because you're not Elvis, you know. Because, you know, if you're a rock star, that's great. I will come to your concerts. But when we're talking about this setting, you want to arrive a little bit early and be comfortable. Even though you've been here a million times and you know the hall very well, arrive early because you never know what might be up that you can't control. All right? And of course, you have to make sure you rest properly. Sleep. Now, this is hard. I don't want to say always, I think growing up on stage from a very young age, I feel comfortable in front of an audience. And also as a professor, I have an audience in front of me every time I teach. So I guess I don't get nervous, but that's only because of practice and experience, right? But I still think sleeping is a bit hard. How many of you have trouble sleeping the night before you're supposed to do juries or a major performance? Yes. So thank God for all these apps. I have this one app that plays certain frequencies at a very low level. And it's been so crazy. I turn it on, and I have it on volume 2 out of 10. I have it on my iPad next to the bed. And I just turn it on, and it's 20 hours nonstop, right? So I run that playlist, and I just pass out immediately. It's so helpful. So find something. If it's music that you need to soothe your mind to be able to relax, that's fine. I actually do not listen to any music several days before a performance because I feel like it messes with my mind a little bit. It's just I'm trying to concentrate on my stuff. But something that's just a frequency or a very low hum or something, like a background noise. All right? You got to relax your mind. You got to stop scrolling. Don't wait outside 10 minutes before your performance and you're going through Instagram or TikTok. That completely messes up with your mind. Turn that crap off and turn it off that morning. If people are texting you, calling you, families trying to figure out where to park, they're all big people. That's their problem. So it's very important not to, in my opinion, have your phone on you because you will constantly check things. People are texting you last minute. And I also think it's very rude because people don't take into account that you're about to go perform. So they shouldn't be texting you, even if they're saying good luck. That's messing up with what's going on. Just turn it off, okay? Read a short story. Something. But don't do it on your screen. Eat healthy. We heard someone saying, having a banana. I tend to do, if it's an evening performance, pasta may sound very heavy, but I try to do at lunchtime just a small cup of pasta salad or something. Because it's enough carbs, it has some veggies, whatever, it's enough, you put some chicken on there, you got your protein or whatever. But something small. Obviously don't eat a massive meal before you're gonna perform. Avoid sugars. No for loco before you go on stage, because that's just not smart. Okay, you don't need that. You don't need Red Bull vodkas before you're about to perform. Okay? Please, everybody has a fake ID, I know. Exercise. Go for a walk, go for a bike ride, maybe not the boxing gym because it might be a little too intense. You don't want to fall asleep at your own performance. Okay? But my point here is that these are all ideas for a slightly calmer state of mind that's just a little bit different. I think always trying to go for a walk outside, away from the noise, go to the horseshoe, whatever. All of that definitely helps you kind of relax a little bit. Arrive early. As I said before, I got here way early because it allows you to relax and get familiar with the venue. I'm confident in saying that you are more used to sitting there than being up on this stage. So don't think, oh, well, it's at the recital hall, I've been there a million times. No, it's actually different when you stand here because all the lights are on you. So arrive early, walk around, feel the stage out, see how it's going to be, what's the setup. Maybe there's a bulb that's out, someone needs to come fix it. Like, you need to give yourself some extra time. Warm up properly. Take some time to warm up your body and your instrument before your performance. Obviously, most of you know this, especially, orchestral instruments and whatnot, and vocalists. As a pianist, that's the thing. If there's others performing or something, you don't always have the option to come and warm up a lot on the actual piano you're going to perform. So then you end up in a practice room, but to me, it still doesn't feel the same because that environment is very different when you're sitting here, right? Take breaks. If you start to feel overwhelmed, take a few minutes to step away from the stage and collect your thoughts. Many of you have gone to performances and a performer might play a set and then they take a bow and then they leave for a minute or two. That's not only a break for the audience mentally, to switch gears, but it really is a break for the instrumentalists. Otherwise they would be here the whole time. It's a break for them to just go mentally recharge for a minute or two. Maybe there's a little reset on stage and then they come back and continue the program. So the breaks, they're very small and short, but they make a big difference. And somebody already mentioned this. You guys had some great answers, by the way. Visualize a positive outcome, okay? Picture yourself performing well and receiving positive feedback from the audience. Who is it you're afraid of in the audience if you're performing and you're nervous that, yes? The recital jury. Let's talk about these evil, horrible people. Who are they? Can we name them officially here? What is your instrument?
Viola.
Okay, viola. So give me a couple of people that would be on your recital jury.
Dr. Barnes and Dr. Sweeney.
Okay. Who do you study with?
Dr. Sweeney.
Does Dr. Sweeney want you to do well? That's all you need to know. Most of the time, right? I mean, really, what you have to realize is even as a professor, I don't ever like failing students. So I will work with them as much as I can, no matter what the exam, quiz, whatever the assignment, because what's the point? You already got accepted here. So that means that the school believes in you. The faculty that you're studying with, they believe in you. Otherwise, they would probably not have taken you on as a student. So you have to realize that even though all of a sudden you're not in their studio chatting about the dog and the cat and playing your instrument, your assignment, but you're coming up here on stage and they're just sitting there and it looks very serious. Well, it has to be serious because you're trying to now show what you've gained from learning from them over the semester. But really, they want you to do well. And I think it's a very important thing to think about before you come on stage. When you see them, usually you greet them, hi, I'm going to do this or that, I'm going to perform this, and nice to see you, and thanks for being here, That smile, somebody mentioned smile, that's important. But remember, they want you to do well. They're on your side. Nobody's not on your side. Like, nobody's like, oh, I'm going to fail this one. Imagine if that was the jury, and they got to fail a bunch of people. How do you think the School of Music would do overall? We're ranked pretty damn well. Like, it would reflect poorly on them as well, because it means that they weren't able to teach you properly. So remember that your jury always wants you to do well. Nobody ever sits there, and I've been on so many different types of juries. Nobody sits there wishing somebody fails. That would just, honestly, if I failed a bunch of students, it would reflect really poorly on me as a professor. Because they'd be like, what the hell are you teaching in there? Why is everybody failing your class? Okay? So realize that, and I think that's a very important aspect. So visualize a positive outcome, picture yourself performing well, and receiving positive feedback. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a jury. You guys are smart, you're already in college. Let's say somebody hired you to do a jury for middle school. Okay? In fact, you have more in common with middle schoolers than you have with your professors. Why? Yes?
Well, the talent level is assumably very, very different.
The talent level is different because hopefully your professors, I know, well, not hopefully, they're all incredibly accomplished and they perform around the world. They get all these amazing invitations. So the relationship between you and your professor talent-wise, or at least repertoire-wise, is pretty great. What else? Yes?
Both students.
You're both students? That's excellent. I didn't even think about that. And what else do you have in common with middle schoolers versus your professor? Many times, not always, but a lot of times. Nobody talks about age, but the age. I mean, I'm like 40, crap. After like 38, you forget how old you are. I'm like 43. And so many of my students are, 18 to 21, 22. I have some grad and PhD as well. But my point is they're a little closer to someone in like 8th grade, okay? So I have no idea where I was going with this, but I need to remember it now. But I'm not nervous, so that's a good thing. The idea is that if you now taught a bunch of middle schoolers and now you are the jury for those middle schoolers, how would you want them to do in their jury? What would you want the outcome to be? Yeah, good, exactly. I mean, why else are you teaching? If you want it to be bad, like, you're wasting your life. Like, you're in the wrong business. All right, so my point is, everybody wants you to do well. All right? Do I still get nervous about all the experience I have had? Yes. I mean, why not? A little bit at least, right? But being anxious or nervous is really a part of the process. It's more about keeping it under control and being confident. Okay? I think it's really important that we get nervous. That is what our physical body requires us to do. What's the main reason you think that we biologically become nervous? What does it really make us do when we become nervous over something? Yes?
Creates a chemical imbalance in our brains.
Okay. But what may be a slightly positive outcome of being a little nervous? Yes? The adrenaline, which makes you do what? Think about it, which that means?
More alert.
More alert. If you have a bear chasing after you, you will get those same chemicals in your brain, and hopefully a better outcome. So when you're slightly nervous, you tend to concentrate more. That's really what my point is, okay? I mean, think about it. If you walk out and you're never nervous, which there have been times where I was completely not nervous, those were my worst performances. Anytime I've been at least slightly nervous, I've performed much better. And I think for me, because I grew up on stage and performed so much from a young age, that's what my body's used to. That's like my performance, drug, I guess. I mean, even though, I'm not taking it, it's just in my body, right? But that helps me concentrate more. But there have been a couple times, actually, I remember in grad school, I always did very well in juries. But one time in my master's degree at UMiami, I did a terrible jury. It was the one time, for some reason, I wasn't even nervous. And it's not that I was overly confident. I don't know what it was that weekend or what, I just wasn't nervous when I showed up. And so I was too relaxed. And so I think when you're nervous, it allows you to concentrate a little bit and be more alert. Okay? Practicing is important, all right? But so is the practice of performing your repertoire for friends or family or strangers, preferably, in order to get more comfortable in that headspace. Now, you may not be able to book the hall. This place is harder to book a trip to than the White House. But if you are at home or you have a practice room, I don't care, somebody's kitchen, it doesn't matter. Do little mini performances. Why do I recommend you do performances in front of others? Yes? How many of the people that you perform for are experts in what you're doing? Maybe there are, I don't know, because then you got a good crew. All right. I like constructive criticism because maybe someone will see you know what? A constructive criticism would be oh, you performed but you had your hand in your pocket the whole time, might be better to. So that's good. What else? What else might be a reason? Yes? Yes, you get used to performing before you do your actual performance, because when you're in your practice room and you're playing through your repertoire all the time, now you're really comfortable with that. The reason we get nervous and tend to mess up is usually not because we didn't learn or memorize. It's because all of a sudden I'm sitting here, there's a light here, and there's a bunch of people, some I know, some I don't. And then someone coughs, sometimes someone's phone goes off. So one of my professors, actually organ professors, when I would do my, rehearse for my recitals, he would go and flicker the lights on and off, he would yawn really loudly, walk around, drop books. He would make all this noise to make the point that there's always going to be unforeseen sounds coming from the audience. People coughing, and then you got the rappers. I mean, you know the drill, right? So the more you perform in front of people, the more it takes the edge off of all that. And that's all it is. It's about practice. And that's a form of practicing when you're performing in front of people. So I always have mini performance practices. Like at my place, I have my Swedish grand piano actually here in South Carolina. So I still have the one I've had like since I was very young. I shipped that thing over here. It costs more than the piano, but it was worth it. And so whenever I have a performance, I just invite friends over, and I'm like, I'm gonna perform this program, we're gonna have dinner, whatever, have drinks, have snacks, whatever, and I just wanna get it through my system with people sitting there. And that to me is worse, because my living room is not this big, right? Kiara, where's Kiara? From Preston. I live at Preston. I'm the only faculty that lives on campus. So I have a beautiful home. You've seen it, right? And so I do all these concerts, and it's like, not this big, but students come and whatever. And so that's great. It gets it through your system, and you get to test it out. So again, practicing is important, but really performing in front of people is how you get recital ready, in my opinion. Okay, and always remember, you're doing this because it's enjoyable. I mean, we've talked about this like it's a horrible torture, and we are just stuck with it. But you have a passion for this. So it's not because you want to torture yourself, it's because you have a talent, and this is your passion. Now, most of what you play repertoire-wise in undergrad, your professors are familiar with it, right? Because they taught you the music. But that's really about it. I mean, let's be honest. Do you think aunt and uncle and cousins and the pets and everybody knows your sonata? No. I mean, great if they do, but probably not. So I always thought, okay, it's cool that I get to perform. People are just here because they like me and they want to hear music. Do they know every single note, whether it's right or wrong or the right chord? No. So you have to realize it's because it's fun. Does that make sense? When is class over? 2 o'clock? Okay, we have a couple minutes. So enjoy the music and enjoy yourself. I have a few minutes, so I thought if there's any questions, any comments, I don't know. You pay tuition, so let's make sure I give you all the 8 minutes that you are here for. Yes, sir.
Hey, so I have a question more so about when you talk about visualizing positive experiences.
Okay.
So I've read at the beginning of undergrad the book called The Inner Game of Tennis, and one of the chapters talks about eliminating these sort of opinions or positive and negative outlooks on your work, because they say, because the author, your experiences of teaching his students that setting these positive and negative connotations on your work and stuff like that has an effect on your actual performance. So my question to you is, with what you're saying and what the book says, how much should we take from each, and what can we do to make our performances a lot more polished?
That is a really good question. And I'll tell you this, everybody's different. So your experience being on stage, are you guys familiar with Barbara Streisand? How many of you have heard? She has the worst stage fright. I mean, she'll talk about it. She has the worst stage fright in the industry. So everybody's experience is a little different. For me, it's more about the positive outcome. I kind of look forward to the end, which is silly because I need to do a better job of enjoying the actual performance, but I really love the end. And it's maybe because I'm a bit of a theater geek and I just love the limelight, right? But for you, it may be a little bit more of the opposite. But part of how you find the right track is by doing more and more performances, because you are going to have some good ones and you're going to have some bad ones. If every performance you did was excellent, it won't be. Let's just put it that way. I mean, even the Lang Lang, he's fantastic. But I'm sure as he was experiencing all this, he's not going to have always a flawless performance when he was much younger. So for me, every performance that you do gives you another little check mark. So let's say you do 50 of them, which will take a while, because even in the 4 years of college, I don't know how many you get to do, especially as a solo artist, but maybe 1 a year, unless you have the juries. I guess that's a performance, right? And so I think it really depends on how many you do and what works for you and what does not. I don't think there's one right or wrong way. Hopefully that answers a little bit, but it really comes from experience. And you will find your groove. You'll know what is it that works for you. Like someone who said, oh, I always have a banana about 45 minutes before because I noticed that helps me. Nobody gave them that in a book, I don't think, right? And so I think you really just have to gain that confidence via experience. But that's a very good question. And there's lots of books on this, because it also has to do with mental health, which is a whole other lecture. But you've got to be in a good state of mind. If you're incredibly stressed or there are mental health issues going on that's really concerning you, it's going to be really hard for you to sit here and play an entire recital memorized. I mean, it's just, so you have to be real to yourself. I guess that's... Any other questions? Yes? Yeah.
You said like online sites to avoid caffeine and sugar, but I have a question. Like for somebody who drinks like a cup of coffee every day,
Yes.
would it be better to just like have the same amount of milk and have so not changing?
So the question is, isn't it better to drink your coffee if you're used to that? Absolutely. I drink literally 6 to 8 cups. Yay, Panera for the subscription. They know me at Russell House, like Miss Pamela. Like I show up and the thing is there every day. I mean, if you can't tell me I'm on coffee, then you're. Yes, I think the point is, don't do something that you're usually not doing. Again, drinking like an energy drink or a Coke just to be like, oh, I need some energy. You're already going to get a lot of energy from the adrenaline. And so what that'll do is it'll really mess up with your rhythm. But if you drink a cup of coffee in the morning, that's amazing. If your recital is at 7 o'clock at night, probably won't affect it that much. Do you know what I mean? Because you're right, you don't want to get a headache or have like some withdrawal or something like that. But that's a good question as well. Don't change up your routine, by the way, the day of a performance. That's something you need to practice and test out. That's why it's good to perform for friends and family. Have all these mock performances. So you're not all of a sudden switching up the way your day is usually done. Any other questions? Yes?
Earlier, you were giving one strategies for how to manage stress before performance. How do you keep those from turning into rituals that just become another outlet for stress, like you don't get to do them or something like that?
Ooh, that's a good one. How do I don't know. Because I think the key here is when I give you tips, those are just tips. It's not do 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. It's do 1, maybe 2. If sitting quietly in a room and reading a chapter is your de-stressor, that's great. If it's taking a walk, that's great. But don't do all of those. It's just more try a couple different ones and see what may work for you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, definitely, because you don't want to add stress. You're absolutely right. And then you might jinx it. You're like, oh crap, I didn't get to take a walk, and now I'm about to go on stage, and that was supposed to be a de-stressor. Don't feel it like that at all. But I would say those are just some techniques that people use that have worked for them. And again, everybody has a different background, and just we're all made differently. So, what may work for some may not work for others. That's a great question. Yes?
I wanted to know, like, if everything goes wrong, if you don't get to drink your coffee and you don't get to sleep, you're very, you're not able to apply all of these things before a concert or a performance. Like, what should you do?
What should you do if everything went wrong? Well, you still have the performance to do. So even if everything went wrong before that, doesn't mean the performance is going to crash and burn. In fact, that may be the one thing that goes really well. And the reason it'll go really well, again, is because you've practiced that state of mind. You've played through your music, you've practiced in front of people, you know the stage, you're used to the environment. And that may actually be your saving grace, where you walk into something that's actually familiar to you because you've done it enough times. And so that's a great question, because what you're saying is, if everything I planned for on my performance day, like I had rented a suit and it never show up, well, just wear a pair of slacks and go do your thing. You know what I mean? But I guess don't let that still mess with your mind. When you get onto that stage and the lights dim and these spots come on and you hear the clap, I used to just sit and start playing. Horrible. Not a good thing. Take a minute. Ooh, make it like, ooh, they're like, what's he doing now? Like I usually now I'm like, I get all this attention. I can sit here and crack my knuckles, whatever. So that may actually be the best thing that happens. So again, it's all about experience and keep the practicing up. Any last question? Because usually people ask me about Disney for some reason. Oh, okay. So you could have asked. So everybody always wonders. So remember, I grew up in Sweden, so when I was growing up, I got to do voiceovers in Swedish. But the cool part is with the Disney app, you can actually choose the language of the audio now. So I'm back to this movie that I was in, because it's the best Disney movie ever made, and I was this guy. I know. He's the best one. So if you haven't seen Goofy Movie, watch it with Swedish audio, and you can still do English subtitles. You're like, wait, I know that guy. So thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Good to see you all. Thank you.